with this, we are proceeding to the final session of our today's conclave, the technical session 4 on sustainable supply chain and technology intervention. We have along with us Mr. Dinesh Shastri, Managing Director, TM International Logistics, as the moderator of the session. We would invite Mr. Shastri on the dais. Mr. Shastri is at present the Managing Director of TM International Logistics Limited, a JV of Tata Steel Limited, NYK Group, and IQ Mart Trade. He is mining engineer by training, working with Tata Steel since 1989 across various functions in mining operations, logistics, and sales. In 2004, he was appointed Managing Director of Tata Steel JV in Thailand, and on his return in 2008, he took over as the Executive in charge Ferroalloys and Minerals Division, followed by a stint as General Manager Global Minerals. In 2014, he was seconded to Tata NYK Shipping Private Limited, Singapore as the Managing Director, and on his return in 2019, he was appointed as Chief Group Shipping, Tata Steel Limited. Mr. Shastri has brought about significant changes in areas that he has handled and has been a high-performing leader with proven track record and rich experience in techno-commercial domain. We welcome Mr. Shastri on the dais, please. With this, it is over to you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. As we approach a Friday evening, normally our thoughts tend to wander away. And 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock reminds us of beer o'clock in some parts of the world. So I will try to make sure that we do not transgress on time and make our weekend will be sustainable. We welcome you to this session of the logistics seminar. But before that, I would like to thank Bengal Chamber of Commerce for inviting us and having such an engrossing discussion all through the day. Actually, the last session and the one before that, the first I didn't attend, unfortunately. I don't know whether we can even match up to it, let alone better it. Excellent speakers, excellent thoughts. And so with that background, we'll try to make an attempt with our panel to see whether we can at least keep your thoughts away from what happens on Friday evenings. So at the outset, I would like to welcome Mr. Uday Narang to the panel. Yeah. I have to operate it or it will operate on its own? Yeah, so Mr. Narang will be attending online, right? Yeah. So can we do a sound check for him, please, before we go there?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, now we can hear you. And Mr. Uday Narang, I'll do a brief introduction of yours, and then you can take. I think we'll introduce all and then start, right? Okay. Yeah. So Mr. Uday Narang is a founder of the Omega Seki Mobility. He's a Delhi-born MBA in finance from Stony Brook in New York. He made his mark in commodity and energy trading industry, where he gained widespread acclaim as one of the world's most innovative fund managers in electricity, at a time when deregulation was taking hold of the US market. After that, he found Omega Psyche, I think I pronounced it right, Psyche?
Yes.
Mobility,
Yes.
Yeah, in 2018, and nurturing it to become the Tesla of the East for cargo vehicles for the country. He's based in New Delhi, and he has a vision to build a pan-Asian brand. He went on to lead oil, gas, and power trading portfolios in several leading trading firms in America before moving to Europe as the president of a major energy trading corporations. Uday's keen eyes for right partners who share his passion for growth and mutual rewards has resulted in a consistent evolution and unrivaled growth of the Anglian brand. While keeping the existing automotive parts business rising to new heights, Uday entered the world of electric vehicles with the OSM brand with a pure electric three-wheeler Rage Plus. This was followed by India's first refrigerated electric vehicle, Rage Plus Frost. He further plans to expand OSM to enter B2B business with two-wheelers, while also bringing a pure electric made in India medium and heavy commercial vehicle. So that's a wonderful foray into the world of EVM. And Uday will welcome you to say a few words a little later after I've introduced the rest of the participants. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Joseph Martin Chazor Francis. Chazor is correct? Yeah. Pardon my mispronunciation, if any. So Joseph is a market leader for ESG platform PwC India, 38 years of diverse industrial IT consulting, business consulting, and now ESG consulting experience. For the last 14 years, he's advised clients across sectors and countries in India, Middle East, North Africa, and on the subjects of ESG. He's a member of the Global Reporting Initiative Global Sustainability Standards Board, overseeing development of the sustainability reporting standards used by the majority of the global as well as Indian organizations. Joseph has done Masters in Business Administration, Cochin University of Science and Technology, and completed BTech Mechanical from NIT Kozhikode. May I welcome Joseph to please come on stage. And last, and definitely not the least, is my good old friend, Sumida-san. Mr. Nobuaki Sumida, he is the head operations, business development, industrial consulting, and there is this problem here. Okay, I know Mr. Sumida better than this. So there is Sumida-san is one of the old hands of NYK, who is currently the country head for NYK in India. And he has had a long history of taking leadership positions in NYK Group. And I had the personal pleasure of sharing board positions with him, at least in 2 board companies. Apart from being a good personal friend and a very good company, particularly after evening. Right, Sumida-san? So I welcome Sumida-san to come and share his experiences, NYK's experiences on sustainability, particularly the use of alternate fuels in shipping. So, welcome, Sumida-san. To set the ball rolling, I was told that this time the chairman of the session is not going to get a free lunch. Luckily, I managed to get a lunch, so still I'll try and earn my living. So sustainability as a theme has been in discussion for long. And a recent IBM survey over about 28 countries revealed that as a knowledge, as a perception, as a concept, it is now reasonably well known. Both in terms of people as well as organizations are aware of the industry benefits, the economic benefits, the triple bottom line benefits, everything that is more or less understood. 80% of the companies surveyed have said that yes, we understand it and we are ready to do all that to support it. 70% are ready to do investments and partnerships to support sustainability in their respective organizations. And more importantly, about 69 or rather 70% of respondents individually suggested that they would be happier joining an organization which is dedicated to sustainability rather than an organization which is only looking at 1P. So what has happened over the last 15, 20 years is that at least there is a well-developed awareness of the subject and the need. And as we heard even recently, lots of organizations have started taking zero carbon neutral targets, some as early as in 2025, some in 2035, 45, 50, 75, and so on. So, but the same survey also revealed an interesting concept that, in the last 2 years, investment in the area of sustainability development has gone up by only 1%. By itself, the number is pretty high, 33 billion. But when you look at overall scheme of things, 33 billion globally, not so hot. So with that background, we now come to the industry where we all belong to. We belong to the supply chain industry, logistics, 3PL, we call ourselves whatever. Essentially, we are here to service our clients who are into manufacturing of the bigger commodities, whether it's steel, as some of us have done, whether it is apparel, whether it is household goods, grocery, whatever. We are the people in between who makes the point A to point B delivery successful, timely, efficient, cost-effective, and so on and so forth. And we have an important responsibility that we are not only doing all that with economy and resilience, but we also need to ensure that the scope 3 emission of our primary clients are curtailed. And that is essentially what we'll try to discuss during this discussion. And I'll set the ball rolling with Uday. And Uday, you're requested to kindly share your thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And sorry I couldn't be there. I had to, something come up important, but I apologize. Great. I've been following the event. Obviously, the Shipping and Logistics Conclave been around for a long time, over a decade, so really proud to be part of it. Green energy and sustainability is core to my heart. You know, I was ex-hedge fund manager, put 35 years between the US and Europe, but came back to India to be part of the journey about 9 to 10 years ago when green energy and sustainability was not that important. Today, you know, obviously with the Prime Minister talking about silent revolution, we're talking about, you know, the Transport Minister leading the charge in every state from West Bengal, you know, to Haryana, to Kerala, to Tamil Nadu. Everybody is now, you know, part of the journey, you know, which is very, very exciting. I will tell you, 31 of the most polluted cities in the world is in our country. And we all owe a responsibility to the future generations to bring green energy sustainability part of that. Logistics, you know, if you look at it, road transport, especially trucks, you know, lead to a very large amount of that pollution. OSM has been working consistently over the last 9 years in terms of three-wheelers, two-wheelers. We've come up with four-wheelers in terms of trucks of 1 ton, 3.5 ton, as well as the higher range internationally. I think that the time is now for all of us to move towards green energy sustainability, whether it's EV or hydrogen for higher trucks. And I think, you know, building the ecosystem, building the, you know, not just being an OEM, but building the charging infrastructure, building battery production, building, you know, powertrains. There is such an opportunity. People are underestimating India. We're already the third largest automobile market in the world after United States, China. You know, we think that in the EV business, what is happening in this country, I think the Japanese and the Koreans have really realized how important this is. I would think, you know, the Europeans and Americans got to join this party too. But I think a lot of us local players who've been around, who've been working on R&D, who've been building products. And I think this is something that I would reach out to everybody in the logistics space to be involved and get part of EV. You know, in Europe 2030 and forward is going to be all green energy. You know, it's going to be all non-IC engines. And the time where, you know, we have a vision of 2070. But I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I'm excited to be part of this and many more. I'm OSM and all of our alliance partners are working tirelessly here. And so, again, thank you very much for the invite, and I'd love to be part of this as we go ahead.
Thank you, Uday. Hello. Hello, yeah. Thank you, Uday. We'll be coming back to you. And we'll now move on to Mr. Joseph Martin Francis Shazur. Sorry.
Thank you, Dinesh. Yeah. Good evening and welcome to this session. I would like to have a presentation here, so can you put that presentation on the screen?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah. So I'll take 4 slides just to explain the context. And what I understand is there is a gross detailed understanding about yeah, I think it's in the presentation. You want to remove that? Yeah, okay, thanks. So there is a gross understanding about sustainability, but I thought I'll take a step back and then explain a few concepts here. We'll talk about the business context. I'll take one example. I think climate change is an important topic among the sustainable development. So I'll take one example and then share some of the ideas about what kind of technologies are becoming very important. Then I'll come to a solution regarding enabling solutions. What kind of solutions can really enable an organization to achieve its sustainable development goals. So these are the 4 slides which I'll set the context. I'll try to take 7 to 8 minutes. Finish? Is that okay? Yeah. So I think we all know corporates are trying to embed the sustainability into their corporate agenda as well as their DNA. But that's a very, very overarching statement. So if someone comes and asks, what is a practical step which I can do to embed sustainability into my overall organizational context, then I think we need to go a bit granular. You have to look at what are the environmental impacts of the company, what are the social impacts of the company, and what are the governance system that is actually managing the company. These are the three core elements which reporting organizations, rating agencies, government, like in India this BRSR reporting has come, which is based on the national guideline on responsible business context, business conduct. So when you look at all these different stakeholders, these three elements always pops up. And if you look at all these three elements, and if you see some of the wider list of environmental, social, governance issues, there are about 40, 45 issues. And no organization can manage those issues in totality. First of all, it's not relevant. Second, it is not practical. So you need to come and drill down into what are the most important topics for your industry. So for example, for logistics, transportation, and industry, I have taken some examples from the MSCI materiality chart, which talks about environmental means net zero is an important thing. Climate risk, especially the physical risk of climate. That means if climate change is happening, what kind of disruptions to the supply chain that can happen? What kind of damages that can happen to the assets from flooding or from temperature increase or by sea level rise? You have to look at the waste management. How the logistics industry will become a part of the entire waste management process. We have seen solutions here for transportation of scrap steel from one part of the country to the other. Similarly, how the waste management can be enabled by the logistics supply chain. Then water intensity, which is a very important topic. I'm sure many of you will be really concerned about water because India is one of the highly water-stressed countries in the world. And even India is going to be more water-stressed than the Middle East. We normally look at Middle East as desert, but we are much more water-stressed than Middle East in the next 10 to 15 years. So water is an important topic. Safety in the supply chain, we are all aware of it. I think that was the primary concern of logistics. Human rights is becoming extremely important. We have seen corporates coming down because there were allegations on human rights. When 1,200 people died in Rana Plaza in Bangladesh, there were demonstrations in front of Sarah Holmes and Marks and Spencer's in Europe. Because that's the kind of awareness that is coming, the connection of supply chain and human rights, labor rights, community impacts. The governance is an important part of logistics because if you look at the logistics supply chain industry, multiple parties, government, regulators, private and public parties are actually interacting to enable the supply chain. So the transparency, business ethics, the board composition of some of the supply chain organizations, because they command a lot of power, especially if you look at companies like Amazon, they exercise tremendous amount of power on the economy. So how do you manage that? And how do you make sure that the board is actually managing it in a very balanced way? How it is accounted? Because there is significant amount of uncertainties in the cross-border between the different organizations in the supply chain. So how the accounting is done, how the integrity of the accounting is done. So these are all different topics that are becoming important. And I'll take one topic because if you're going to take every topic, then I think we'll continue on this discussion. I'll take one topic, which is the primary topic of climate change. And we will see how climate change is going to affect and what are the key levers we have when you look at the supply chain. The left side diagram which I'm showing is the emission pathways for transportation industry globally. I don't have the data point for India, but global data point. And what is the objective of the global logistics industry in the next 7 years? Like if you look at 2030, from the current level, 2 gigatons of carbon has to be reduced. Today it is about 7.7. We need to bring down that to 5.7 globally. which requires a lot of different actions. I think most of you are aware of these actions. First of all, efficiency. If you go to IMO, MARPOL regulations that has come, very clear roadmaps for classifying the global vessels into A, B, C, D, and E, and with a very clear requirement that if you perform at A and B, then you will be left alone. If you perform at C, then you're okay, you're fine. But if you perform at D and D, if you perform 2 years, 3 years at D, then you will be asked to give a report of what are the steps you are going to take. If you are at E, then the next year you will be asked to give a report of what are the steps you are going to take to reduce the carbon emissions. So that kind of regulations are coming from MARPOL, from IMO. From ICAO also similar kind of regulations are coming. So all these regulations are driving engine development and material development, which is going to be a small part of the carbon reduction possibilities. But again, that's going to be driving some of the industry developments in the coming years. Fuel switch. Getting enabled by various kinds of fuel, like biofuel, hydrogen, electricity. It's anybody's guess like how hydrogen is coming as a major player in this whole game. Biofuel has been supported by the government. Even this budget also, there was a lot of support that has come for the biofuel. Electricity is the cornerstone. And how do you integrate renewable energy into the electricity? And how do you make sure that the intermittent supply of renewable energy can be effectively integrated into the grid? That will also become a key lever. And we heard quite a lot about multimodal switches and multimodal parks. Multimodal transportation as well as reverse logistics. These are going to be the new business models that will help the country to achieve its carbon reduction potential. We are committing that we will reduce the carbon intensity by 45% by 2030. One of the key strategies country had taken from the PM Gati Shakti, which is supported by some of the regulatory support which is announced in budget this time, including the PPP and viability funding gap for coastal shipping. These are certain strategies which government is very consciously driving to reduce the carbon emissions. So in a nutshell, these are the key levers. If you look at only one ESG topic which is related to the transportation. Then if these are the topics, how globally this is getting developed. PwC normally publish every year a climate tech, state of climate tech development in the world. So last year, if you look at, mobility is only having 15% of the global carbon emissions. But if you look at the investments in the mobility from a climate tech perspective, it was 48%. And that's in a year, you should imagine, the M&A activities in the transportation and logistics was reduced by almost 20% because of the uncertainty, because of the anticipation of inflation. There was low amount of M&A activities happened last year, but in the same year, amount of technology that is developed for addressing climate change has really increased in that particular sector, which actually gives you a point where currently we did a CEO survey this year. CEOs are really bothered about next 2 years. I think each of us are really bothered about that, how the inflation is going to come, how the volatility is going to affect our business. But all of them, 85% of them in India, they are concerned about what is going to happen to their business in the next 7 to 10 years from a climate perspective. So all their priorities are actually driven towards how to manage my business in a sustainable way in the coming 10 years. That's a key thing. And this data points are actually in support of that. And the last one which I am trying to bring here, if you talk about a sustainable supply chain for a logistics company, there are different layers to that. One is the corporate drive to embed sustainability. Second is the mandatory and voluntary disclosure requirements. And this mandatory and voluntary disclosure requirements has 4 different characteristics of supply chain which needs to be managed. One is the transparency of the supply chain. Is there any human rights violation happening in your supply chain that is of interest to your investors or your regulators? Efficiency of the supply chain, which is managed by the model shifts, the efficiency management, all those activities. The collaboration with the supply chain partners. Because if a large company wants to measure its sustainable supply chain performance, it needs support from the different agencies who are supporting its supply chain. How to enable that collaboration, that is the third point. And fourth and important point, resilience of the supply chain. That has been earmarked by many studies, especially in India, because India is a country which is highly climate vulnerable. And if you go to German Watch last year report, German Watch is telling two things about India. One is India is a country which is going to have significant impact from the climate change. And it is at a very high level, India's impact. But the second thing what German Watch is telling, India has taken enough steps to mitigate that. So we are actually in the top 5 of the high-performing climate mitigating countries in the world. Whatever strategies country had put in, the policies had put in, it's actually supporting that. We are in the leading position. So that resilience, physical risk resilience of the supply chain is extremely important. For enabling that, there are solutions coming. If you look at last 10 years, the amount of digital solutions that come to support sustainable supply chain, that is enormous. I was reading one report from Verdantix. There are 12 major technology providers has come. What they have done is they have created solutions for capturing the data, especially the ESG data that is multifaceted, coming from multi-sources, collecting the data and putting it in a container, and creating some kind of integral system so that the data accuracy and data integrity can be protected. Second thing what they have provided is a detailed solutions for engagement with suppliers, because suppliers are at different levels and suppliers are at different maturity. So bringing every supplier, every participant in the supply chain on the maturity on ESG is a very important thing. So significant amount of learning solutions that are coming. The third part is the risk management solutions. To cite an example, PwC has a solution which can measure what can happen to each of the geography on a 5 meter by 5 meter granularity in the country. What kind of sea level rise can happen? What will be the flood situation in that particular place? What will be the drought situation in that particular place? And provide recommendations on what will be the impact in the next 10 to 15 years by 5 meter granularity, which will help you to understand what will be the kind of physical risk you will be facing in the long run. So these kind of solutions, technology solutions are coming. On top of it, artificial intelligence and blockchain are going to be enabling solutions, enabling technologies for improving efficiency, improving transparency, ensuring the resilience of the supply chain. So with this initial background, let me leave my thoughts with you, and then I'll be very happy to answer your questions.
A round of applause, please. Thank you, Joseph. Just as long as your name is, you have covered the entire length and breadth of the subject, starting from not only the need and the basis of the need for sustainability to the levers of sustainability, the reporting requirements as well as the technology. I think you have left very little for us to say further, but still I would love to invite Subhida-san, who will share with you the theory about the subject which you touched in detail, in brief, was the fuel. They will be sharing the NYK experience on what alternate fuels we can use to reduce the impact on the shipping. Over to you, Sumida-san.
Thank you, Teju-san. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm very privileged to make a presentation in front of you. I'm not so sure you are a little bit tired or not in this afternoon. And please give me 10 minutes to make presentation with 7 pages, including this opening. Sorry, to next page, sorry. Thank you. Next page. Okay, all right. Then let me introduce who is NYK. I don't know you are familiar with our company. We are a Japanese company based in Tokyo. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Based in Tokyo and established in 1885. And we have a 35,000 employees globally. And then NYK operates, it's a shipping company, more than 800 ships. And then it used to be a liner, container ship. But since 2017 and or 18, our liner service to consolidated to ONE, Ocean Networks Express Service. Since then, we are only liner owner and disponent owner. And after that, our main ships is dry bulk ships, Capesize, Panamax, Handymax, also car carrier, and cruise ships, etc. You can see. In addition to this shipping ownership, and then we have an air freighter and terminal, and also logistics center. One of our logistics services with Adani here in India. And also, NYK started service with Tata Sons Group since 1893, so-called Bombay Kobe service. It just has passed 130 years. And then since then, we have some good relationship with Tata Sons Group. And then now we have we are one of the shareholder of TMRL, led by Mr. Danish, and also Tata NYK Shipping in Singapore we have. And then let me touch on our sustainable issue, especially GHG, greenhouse gas issue. And then total emission in all over the world is like this, 34 billion tons in last year. Out of this, transportation is second largest in terms of business portfolio. And then, especially this transportation, shipping is 11%. And then out of this 11%, NYK is 1.4%, which means we consume 17 million tons in last year. Then our roadmap is, in fact, in IMO, International Maritime Organization, there are no targets still under discussion to achieve zero emission by end of this century. But no targets, we mutually agree. NYK is target 2050 by zero emission. And also by 2030, 30% reduction compared with 2015. And in fact, we try to reduce year by year, especially COVID time. There are some logistics so confusion in a couple of years, especially 2021. We increase this greenhouse gas emission increase because we have to speed up ships because of such a logistics confusion. There are some logistics stop you may see, especially container service, also bulk ships. We have to speed up in 2021. And also, still we don't have any number in last year, 2022, because of Russian-Ukraine war. I think also industries, not only maybe shipping industry, other industries also GC emissions increase. Hence, NYK direction of decarbonization by 2050 is LNG, liquid natural gas dual fuel is our first choice, followed by ammonia and hydrogen. In fact, LNG is a kind of transition method, especially because LNG can be reduced greenhouse gas compared with fossil oil around 30%. while there are no such a zero emission by two, especially ammonia has some poison and also needs some big tank capacity. There are no ships is available in terms of dual fuel ships. And also hydrogen, yeah, I can see especially India, hydrogen is coming. Needs more technology. Yeah, especially they need some big tank, also very easy to burn. If this ship carry hydrogen, if ships burn, then no one can operate this hydrogen. In that sense, hydrogen, I think by 2028 or by maybe next decades requires to be feasibly operated. In that sense, our direction is LNG as a first to reduce GHG 30%, followed by ammonia, then after, finally, to be hydrogen, to achieve zero emission of 2050. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Sumida-san, for giving such a roadmap for improving the sustainability in shipping. And I'm sure this will also be an example and inspiration for other organizations who are trying to start this journey. So thank you very much. We'll now open the session for a Q&A, and we welcome audience. Yeah, any questions, please? If not, then I will have a few questions. Yeah, sorry, I can.
My name is Praful Tayal. I have a question for you. In the shipping lines and also in the inland waterways, is there any research being done on methanol as a fuel?
Yes, we have methanol. And then this is one of the two. And NYK carry methanol by ourselves. With Metanox is Canada's biggest methanol producer. To produce methanol, also we burn greenhouse gas. This is one of the, I think, disadvantage of methanol. Maersk is concerning about this methanol as a next. NYK, we don't think so. This depends on carrier choice.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Anybody else? Yeah.
My question is to Mr. Uday Narang.
It would be nice if you introduce, because sometimes...
I'm Aviral Jain, Director Pristine Hindustan. We're running an ICD in Siliguri. So my question is to Mr. Uday Narang. Basically, how can we increase, right now the electric vehicles are there and we're seeing a lot of three-wheelers, less four-wheelers, but what is the roadmap which you see the incorporation of electric vehicles, and maybe a day wherein we can also have electric trucks? We just heard that Adani Logistics has purchased electric trucks for the movement of containers within the port. So how do you see the roadmap for electric trucks in the surface mobility transport, and what are your plans for that?
Absolutely. Great question. Great to see you. Look, I think, we are working continuously across this nation to put more and more 3, 2, and 4. And if your question is primarily on the trucks, we've got the 1-ton M1KA, but I also have the bigger trucks, the 3.5 ton, the 6.5 ton, up to 50 tons. The key problem with the trucks in India is the cost pricing, right? We believe that, the larger trucks, the 6.5 and above, the 3.5, 6.5, and up to 50-ton trucks that we are running in ASEAN, in the Middle East. We just took some of our trucks to Saudi Arabia. I think we have to find better solutions, whether it is hydrogen or whether it's fast charging will reduce the cost of the battery and the powertrains, making them in-house in India. So we are working on this. I do see a very significant amount of, activity happening in the trucks. OSM is working tirelessly in this. The 1-tons are ready. We are going to be putting up with the large logistic fleets. You will hear, maybe 200 of those 1-tonners being put with a very large European player in India in a very short order. But I think that, building the infrastructure, building the charging, I think we are even working on swap with trucks. And I think in terms of if you want long distance, our trucks are already doing about 150 to 200 kilometers in a single charge. I think, I would say hydrogen is something that we're working on, but India is talking a lot about hydrogen. I think it's a great, it's a great step forward. But in terms of security, in terms of infrastructure, it will take some time. Rome wasn't built in one day. But I will say the opportunity is there. And I think, we are working on it, and many other, Ashok Leyland, many other players, Tata's working on it. I think there's going to be a whole lot of activity in this space. We do think, again, that the rate at which electrifications in 3 and 2 has happened, 4 in the logistics space will be higher. In the passenger side will take some time. But again, I think for me, it is the need of the hour to bring more alternate energy fuels, into this country. We are working at this, and I think over the next few years, you will see multiple products from us and many others in this space.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? If that's I think we'll call an end to this session. Thank you so much for being an engaging audience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shastri. We have now a pleasant task to perform. On behalf of the chamber, I would request Mr. Shastri to hand over token of mementos. Thank you so much. Another memento for Mr. Sunida. Thank you so much. With this, we conclude our technical sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, as we announced at the very beginning of our program, that today we have got a lucky draw for our delegates. I hope everybody has put in your visiting cards to the Bamilori Travels and Vacation stall. They have arranged a lucky draw for you. So I would request you all to please join us in the audience. We would now request Mr. Udayan Ghosh, ED Logistics, to come up on the dais and please announce the winner.
Turning this box. Turn it. We are turning this box in front of you, and let us see who is the lucky person sitting out here. So here is the lucky person.
Abhirup Jain, Director. Abhirup Jain.
Thank you so much. It was really very exciting. I would now request Mr. Hajra to come up on the dais and give a final concluding address on behalf of the committee and the chamber.
Thank you, Shukanna. Good evening. I think, I was asked to sort of sum up the discussions of the whole day in a few minutes, and I will not venture into that impossible task. But if I may say so, I think most of you will agree with me that the underlying mood of the day-long presentation has been positive. I mean, right since the morning, we have heard so many positive measures which are being taken all across the country not only by the center, but also by the industrialists themselves. And I think things are definitely changing for the better. Of course, we are never happy with the pace of reforms. We always feel that it could have been faster. But nevertheless, I, for one, definitely believe that things are changing for the better. And when it comes to logistics and maritime, India, I think it was Vandana Agarwal who mentioned a very pertinent point that, whatever figures she had given, $80-odd billion in terms of sea freight, of which $75 billion in a way is going out of the country. But the main thing is, if you calculate the importance of India in its exempt trade vis-a-vis, I'm only talking of the seaborne trade primarily, vis-a-vis the international seaborne trade, you will find that as expected, I suppose, India is possibly the third most important countries, only next to China and US, in terms of seaborne trade. India's seaborne exempt trade, which I think will be close to 1 billion ton, will be almost 8%, 9% of that of the worldwide seaborne trade. Whereas Indian fleet is hovering around 1% of the global fleet. So obviously, if a country has 8-9% of international seaborne trade, but has only 1% of fleet, it's bound to happen what has happened, that actually she has said that, Indian bottom carries about less than 10%. In my calculation, it's just about 7% or thereabout. And that too, because we have a better percentage in crude and products, which is maybe 12-13%. But in container, we are absolutely, it's an abysmal figure. I mean, I don't know what percentage, 1% or whatever. Even in dry bulk, it's a very, very meager percentage, maybe 4%. So overall, it's barely 6-7%. And she mentioned another thing which just caught my attention. There are so many important points mentioned during the day. I won't say that I have caught too many of them. But one thing she mentioned, that while in the, worldwide, about 80-odd percentage of seaborne, of international trade by volume is carried by sea. In India, it is 90% or thereabout. But one point there has been missing, that while for our exempt trade, by volume, India has a situation where 90% gets carried by sea. But for the domestic freight transportation, it's again barely 6-7%. Of course, there has been phenomenal growth in inland water transportation, but phenomenal because, to start with, we had such a low figure that growth has to be phenomenal whenever growth takes place. So in coastal shipping and inland water, we have a lot to catch up with. So as I said, I will not try to sum up anything, but if I may say that content-wise, this has been one of the best conclaves that we have conducted. Maybe in terms of footfall, we could have done much better. And as I think Dinesh mentioned, Friday evening phenomena, I can see today, at this point of time, we barely have not even maybe 50 delegates sitting, which is a pity. And I wish the future conclaves not only content-wise remains as rich as it has been today, but also it has much better connectivity in terms of better footfalls. And even I don't know, of course, that I won't be able to say straight away how much the digital reach has been of this particular conclave, because it is available digitally. But nevertheless, I think that is one factor where the chamber and all of us have to work to improve. But overall, I think shipping is going in the right direction when it comes to environment. IMO is doing its best. And again, just like anything else, we can say that the pace could have been better. But nevertheless, I think we are reaching somewhere. When Bandana says that, about 3% of greenhouse gas emission of the world comes from shipping, unless in the same breath you say that, as was mentioned elsewhere, that 80% of international trade by volume gets carried by sea, so 3% is being contributed by a mode of transport which carries 80% of international trade. I dare say, of course, Mr. Naresh Kumar representing railways, he is here, but we talk so much about modal shift of cargo, but we still talk basically from road to rail. I have mentioned this in past, maybe, at similar forum, but many of you have not been there, so I will repeat it. That once I was attending a parliamentary committee meeting in the Parliament Annexi. Sitaram Yechuri at that point of time was the chairman of the Standing Committee on Transport. And this was attended by the Shipping Secretary, by the Railway Board Chairman, by the Aviation Secretary, by the Road Transport Secretary, all the different modes of transport. And all the secretaries, and of course from Railway, it was the Railway Board Chairman who made the presentations. In the presentation, the Railway Board Chairman, if I remember correct, there was one Mr. Agarwal, who was at that point of time the Railway Board Chairman. He mentioned railways as the most environmentally friendly mode of transport. Sitting there as the Chairman SCI, I thought in any case, it's good that P.K. Sinha, who was then the Shipping Secretary, later on he became CAPSEC, and then he was there in PMO also for a long time. So I thought since P.K. Sinha is making the presentation after Mr. Agarwal, he will correct the statement. Unfortunately, he didn't mention a single word on that. It's fortunate that I got a chance. There was a question put to Mr. Sinha, and Mr. Sinha said, sir, addressing to Mr. Yechuri, sir, since Chairman SCI is present here, he will be better placed than me to answer the question. So if you permit, he will answer the question. So Mr. Yechuri said, yes, Hazara Sahab, please answer. So I said, sir, before I try to answer the question put to me, I would seek your indulgence and indulgence of the committee to just correct a statement made by my very good friend, the Railway Board Chairman, Mr. Agarwal. He said that railways is the most environmentally friendly mode of transport. I will correct him that both in terms of carbon footprint as well as greenhouse gas emission, definitely shipping is much more environmentally friendly than railways. So we talk about modal shift and all that, and people talk about coastal shipping, door-to-door, coming more expensive, things like that. And I say this is so distressing in a way that, since independence, India has spent hundreds of thousands of crores in building up the infrastructure in road and rail. And for coastal shipping and inland water, not even 10,000 crores has been spent. And at the end of the day, you say that, door-to-door, why will the customer be interested in coastal shipping or IWT because it is coming more expensive? It's because the infrastructure is not there. And infrastructure has not been invested in. So it's our duty to see that it is invested in, because that is the future as far as environment is concerned. And I think another, again, just it caught my ear, so I will just mention that. It is very distressing. Of course, we all know, as they say, that the next world war will possibly be fought on water, not on any other resource. But it's very distressing, while it must be a fact, but it's very distressing to note that India is even more water stressed than Middle East. This is something which, normally you don't even, consider. You don't know and you don't consider. So we must be very, very careful about the water resources, and we must see that whatever water resources we have, we harness it well. So I think I will not prolong my talk because we are at the fag end of the conclave. I thank all of you who are still present here for your active participation. I particularly thank my committee and the Secretariat because whatever we have put up is entirely due to the efforts made by my committee members, my colleagues, and the Secretariat, led, of course, by Sukarna. So I will now hand over the podium to Sukarna to conclude the conclave. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we finally say bye to our 12th edition and look forward for the 13th edition, I would like to thank our gold sponsor, BGS Group, Shama Prasad Mukherjee Port, TM International Logistics Limited, Adani Ports and Says, Kalyani Castech Limited, CG Darsal Logistics Limited, Baman Lorry and Company Limited, our logistic partner, Hindustan Ports Private Limited, DP World, our knowledge partner, PwC, our silver sponsors, All Cargo Logistics, CFS, Century Ply Board India Limited, Steel Authority of India, SAIL, Summit Alliance Port East Gateway India Private Limited, the PDP Group Allied ICT Services Limited, ICT Durgapur, West Bengal. Our bronze sponsors, APJ Shipping Limited, KBR Transport Private Limited, Pinnacle Logistics India Private Limited, Translog Ship Private Limited, United Liner Shipping Services LLP, Sea Ship Logistics Private Limited, Speedways Logistics Private Limited, New Era Shipping Line Private Limited. Our legal partner, Victor Moses and Company. Our official media partner, Exim India Shipping Times, Exim Multimedia India Private Limited. Our event supporters, EXM Project Movers Private Limited, SNB Agency, Megdipa Logistic Private Limited, Mitra Enterprises, Freya Shipping Services, Vintech Polymers Private Limited, TNS Logipark Private Limited, JCC India Private Limited, Riverine Infra Logistics, Rajashri Construction Consortium, and all present here with us. And a big thanks to the Shipping and Logistics Committee of the Bengal Chamber. With this, we conclude. We see you all on the 13th edition of the annual Shipping and Logistics Conclave. Thank you. Good night.